Before we begin tonight, I want you to do something for me. Check the lock on your front door. Go ahead. I'll wait. Because the 3 stories I'm about to tell you share one thing in common. In every single one of them, the person thought they were safe. They thought they knew their surroundings. They thought they understood the people around them. They were wrong. My name is not important. What matters is that these stories found their way to me. And now they're going to find their way to you. Turn the lights up if you need to. This is going to take a while. I want to start by saying I am not someone who scares easily. I grew up in a small town in rural Virginia, the kind of place where nothing ever happens and everybody knows everybody. I worked my way through nursing school on sheer stubbornness and black coffee, and by the time I was 26, I had seen enough in clinical rotations to know that the human body is capable of things that would give most people nightmares for a week. I thought I was prepared for anything. I was not prepared for Daniel. I started working night shifts at Mercy Ridge Medical Center in the fall of 2019. It was a mid-sized regional hospital. Nothing remarkable about it. Decent staff, manageable patient load, the kind of place where you learn the rhythms pretty quickly. Who takes long breaks, who does their charting early, who to call when the vending machine eats your dollar at 2 in the morning. Daniel had been working there for about 8 months before I arrived. Orderly, quiet, mid-30s, average height, average build, the kind of person your eyes slide off of without registering. He always wore his hospital ID clipped to his left pocket, and he always, and I mean always, arrived exactly 7 minutes before his shift started. Not 5, not 10, 7. I noticed that detail early on and filed it away as quirky. In a hospital, you meet all kinds of people. Some of them are just particular about time. The first thing that unsettled me happened about 3 weeks into my time there. It was a Tuesday night, somewhere around 2 a.m. I was doing my rounds on the 3rd floor. We had a patient in room 312, an elderly man named Mr. Calloway, 74 years old, admitted for cardiac monitoring. His vitals had been stable all evening. Nothing alarming. He was sleeping when I checked on him at midnight, comfortable, peaceful. I was heading back to the nurse's station when I passed Daniel in the hallway. He was standing outside room 312, just standing there, not doing anything, not carrying anything, just standing with his hands at his sides looking at the closed door. I stopped. "Everything okay?" I asked. He turned and looked at me, and there was something in his expression that I couldn't name. Not grief, not concern, something quieter than either of those things. "He won't make it to morning," Daniel said, just like that, flat, certain. Like he was reading it off a chart. I looked at him. "Mr. Calloway, his vitals are fine. He's stable." Daniel nodded slowly, like I had said something interesting but not particularly relevant. "Have a good night," he said, and he walked away down the corridor. I stood there for a moment, uncomfortable in a way I couldn't explain. Then I went back to the nurse's station and pulled up Mr. Calloway's monitoring data. Everything was normal, absolutely normal. At 4:17 a.m., the cardiac alarm went off in room 312. Mr. Calloway was gone before we got the crash cart through the door. I told myself it was a coincidence. In a hospital, people die. Patients on cardiac monitoring are there precisely because their hearts are unreliable. Daniel had probably just noticed something, a sound through the door, a change in the rhythm of the monitors, something his experience had taught him to read. It wasn't supernatural. It was pattern recognition. That is what I told myself. Over the next 6 weeks, it happened 4 more times, always the same way. Daniel standing outside a door, Daniel saying something quiet and certain, Daniel walking away. And then, within hours, the patient inside that room would be gone. Not once was he wrong. I started watching him more carefully. I told myself I was being rational about it, scientific. I was a nurse. I dealt in evidence. What I found did not make me feel better. Daniel did not socialize with the other staff. Not in the hostile way of someone who dislikes people, more in the way of someone who simply does not register other people as particularly interesting. He ate his meals alone in the break room. Always the same food in the same order. Always reading from the same battered paperback that I never got close enough to identify. He was meticulous about his work, almost obsessively so. Every surface he cleaned was cleaner than it needed to be. Every piece of equipment he moved was returned to within an inch of where it started. The nurses who had worked with him longer than I had described him as the best orderly they'd ever had. He anticipates things, one of the older nurses told me once. Before you even know you need something done, Daniel's already done it. She said it like it was a compliment. It made my skin crawl. The thing that pushed me from unsettled to genuinely frightened happened in November. I was leaving after a long shift, walking to my car in the staff parking lot. It was just past 7 in the morning, the sky that pale, cold gray of early winter. I was tired. My feet hurt. I was thinking about nothing except my bed. Daniel was in the parking lot. He was standing between two cars about 40 feet away, and he was looking at me. Not the casual glance of a coworker passing by. Looking directly, unmoving. I raised a hand in a half wave. He didn't wave back, he just kept looking. I got to my car, unlocked it, got inside. When I looked in my rearview mirror, he was still standing in the same spot, still watching my car. I drove away faster than I needed to. That night, I did something I'm a little embarrassed to admit. I went to the hospital's HR database, which I had access to as a floor nurse for legitimate administrative reasons, and I looked up Daniel's employee file. I told myself I was just curious, that I would read his file, find something completely normal, and feel ridiculous for being paranoid. His file was almost entirely blank, not in a way that suggested anything had been removed, more in a way that suggested almost nothing had ever been there. No previous employment listed, no references. A home address that, when I later drove by it out of morbid curiosity, turned out to be a vacant lot on the edge of town. The emergency contact field was empty. I stared at that empty field for a long time. In my experience, everyone has a name they put down for emergencies. A parent, a sibling, a friend, a landlord. Daniel had no one. I went to my supervisor the next morning. I told her about the predictions, about the parking lot, about the file. She listened patiently. When I was done, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He's been here for 8 months, not one complaint, not one incident. He shows up, he does his job, and he goes home. Where does he go?" I asked. "His address on file is a vacant lot." She looked at me with the expression of someone who is deciding whether to be concerned or dismissive. She chose dismissive. "I'll look into the address issue," she said. "But I am not going to take action against an employee because he's quiet and he's good at reading patients." I nodded, I thanked her, I went back to work. 3 nights later, I found out what Daniel did after his shift ended. I had forgotten my phone in my locker and driven back to the hospital at around midnight to get it. I parked in the staff lot, went in through the rear entrance, got my phone, simple. Should have taken 5 minutes. On my way back out, I passed the hallway that led to the basement level. Housekeeping, maintenance, storage. The door at the end of that hallway, the one that led to the basement stairwell, was open. I don't know why I stopped. I don't know why I didn't just keep walking to my car. Maybe I was tired enough that my judgment was slower than usual. Maybe something in the back of my brain was already adding things up in a way the front of my brain hadn't caught up with yet. I walked to the door and looked down the stairs. There was a light on below, and I could hear something, a sound I couldn't immediately place. Quiet, rhythmic, almost like breathing, but not quite. I took 3 steps down the staircase. The sound stopped, and from the darkness at the bottom of the stairs, Daniel's voice said, quietly and clearly, "You should go home," not threatening, not loud, just those 4 words. In that flat, certain tone I had heard outside patient rooms. I went home. I put in my resignation the following week. I told HR it was a personal matter. I transferred to a hospital 40 minutes away, and I have worked there without incident for the past 5 years. I never found out what Daniel was doing in that basement. I never found out where he lived, or where he came from, or how he knew which patients would not survive the night. I checked the hospital staff directory about a year after I left. His name was gone. I called a former colleague and asked about him casually. She paused before answering. "He left," she said. "About 2 months after you did. Just didn't show up one day. No notice. Nothing." She paused again. 3 patients died that week," she said, "all on his last shift. I didn't ask anything else. I don't want to know anything else. Some things you're better off not understanding." My husband Derek and I have been married for 11 years. We are not dramatic people. We don't argue about much. We like hiking and bad action movies and cooking dinner together on Sunday nights. We have a dog named Biscuit who is afraid of plastic bags, and we have a standing argument about whether the thermostat should be set to 68 or 70 that will probably outlast us both. I say this to establish that what happened during our vacation in August of 2022 was not the product of overactive imaginations or a flair for the dramatic. It was real. Every single part of it was real, and it changed something in both of us that has not fully changed back. Derek found the cabin rental online, the way you find most things these days. It was listed on a vacation rental site, 4.5 stars, 47 reviews, most of them enthusiastic, secluded but not isolated. A 2-hour drive from our home in Asheville, North Carolina, up into the mountains. A week in late August, just the two of us and Biscuit. No agenda, no itinerary, just quiet. The listing photos showed a warm, wood-paneled interior. A stone fireplace, a covered porch with a view of the tree line, a kitchen that looked well stocked, a loft bedroom with a skylight. What the listing photos did not show was the basement. We arrived on a Saturday afternoon. The property manager, a man named Gary who communicated exclusively through text messages and had apparently never felt the need to meet guests in person, had left a lockbox on the porch with the key inside. The cabin was exactly as advertised. Clean, comfortable, well-stocked. The view from the porch was everything you would want from a mountain cabin in late summer. Biscuit ran 3 laps around the property and then sat down in the middle of the yard and refused to move for 10 minutes, which we attributed to travel fatigue. We unpacked. We opened a bottle of wine. We sat on the porch and watched the sun go down through the trees. It was perfect. The first thing I noticed that was slightly off was in the kitchen. I was unpacking the groceries we had brought, and I noticed that the refrigerator already had a few items in it. An open jar of mustard, a half-empty bottle of hot sauce, a container of leftovers that I didn't open. I texted Gary immediately. "Hey, it looks like the previous guests left some food in the fridge. Can you let me know when it was last cleaned?" His response came 40 minutes later. Cleaned between every guest. Probably just something that got missed. Sorry about that. Throw it out and let me know if anything else needs attention. I threw it out. That should have been the first thing that made me turn around and drive home. The second night, Derek found the basement. He had been exploring the cabin looking for extra blankets. The mountain nights were colder than we expected, and he found a door off the back of the kitchen that we had both assumed was a pantry. "There's a whole basement down here," he called out. I came and looked. A wooden staircase descended into darkness. Derek found the light switch, a single bare bulb on a pull string, and we went down together. It was a standard mountain cabin basement. Concrete floor, stone walls with moisture stains, a water heater in the corner, a stack of firewood, an old chest freezer against the far wall, the kind that probably dated back to the 1980s. The freezer was padlocked. That struck me as odd. Not alarming, just odd. You don't usually padlock a chest freezer in a vacation rental. Why would you? What would a property manager need to lock away from guests? I mentioned it to Derek. He shrugged and said Gary probably used it for personal storage and didn't want guests getting into it. Reasonable explanation. We went back upstairs. That night, Biscuit refused to sleep in the bedroom. He planted himself at the top of the basement stairs and sat there the entire night without moving. I got up twice to check on him. Both times he was in the same position, ears forward, nose working, staring at the door to the basement stairs. I told myself he smelled an animal. A raccoon maybe, sheltering in the crawl space beneath the foundation. On the third day, Derek went into town for groceries, and I stayed at the cabin alone with Biscuit. I don't know what made me go back to the basement. Boredom maybe. Curiosity, that particular stubbornness that takes over when something keeps nagging at the back of your mind and won't let go. I went down the stairs and stood in front of the padlocked freezer for a long time. Then I looked at the rest of the basement more carefully than I had the first night. The stone wall to my left, the one running along the back of the cabin, had a section that looked slightly different from the rest. The stones were the same color and roughly the same size, but the mortar between them was newer, cleaner, less weathered. I pressed my hand against it. The section of wall moved. Not much, not dramatically, but it moved. The way a door moves when you press against it before you've turned the handle. There was give there. There was a hinge somewhere. I stepped back. Biscuit was at the top of the stairs. I could hear him whining softly. I stood in that basement for probably 2 full minutes, looking at that section of wall, my heart doing something that I was trying very hard to tell myself was just excitement. Then I went back upstairs and sat on the porch and waited for Derek to come home. When Derek got back, I took him straight to the basement and showed him the wall. He pressed against it the same way I had, felt the give, stepped back. "There's something behind there," he said. "I know." We looked at each other. "We should text Gary," I said. "Yeah," Derek said. Neither of us moved. I don't know why we didn't text Gary right then. I have asked myself that question many times since. The honest answer is that there is something in human curiosity that is stronger than human caution. We knew something was behind that wall. We needed to know what it was. Derek found the latch. It was a simple iron hook set into the stone at waist height, almost invisible unless you were specifically looking for it. He lifted it. The wall swung open. Behind it was a room small, maybe 8 feet by 10 feet. Concrete floor, same as the rest of the basement. A single light fixture in the ceiling, no bulb, no windows. Along one wall, a wooden shelf. On the shelf, 4 large plastic storage containers, each one sealed with a latch. A folding camp chair, collapsed and leaning in one corner, and on the floor in the center of the room, a sleeping bag. A used sleeping bag. Rolled loosely. The way you roll it when you're planning to use it again soon, not the way you store something you're done with. Derek and I stood in the doorway of that room for a long time without saying anything. The air inside was stale, closed in. But underneath the staleness there was something else, something that took me a moment to identify. It smelled lived in. Not like a storage room, not like a sealed space. Like somewhere a person had been spending time. We went upstairs. I texted Gary. "Hey, there's a hidden room in the basement behind the back wall. It looks like someone has been using it recently. Can you explain what this is?" 45 minutes passed, nothing. An hour, nothing. I called the number. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I left a message. Derek was on his laptop looking up the property records. The cabin had been owned by Gary's LLC for about 3 years. Before that, it was owned by a private individual, a man whose name I am not going to share here. Before that, the records got complicated in ways that local county databases don't make easy to follow. 2 hours after my text, Gary responded. "That room has been locked for years. Old storage space. Nobody has access to it. I'm not sure how you got it open. I'll have someone look at it when you check out." I read that text 3 times. Then I read it once more. Nobody has access to it. I had opened it with a simple iron hook latch. No lock, no key, just a hook that anyone in that basement could have reached in under 5 seconds. Either Gary didn't know his own property, or Gary was lying to me. That night, neither Derek nor I slept well. Around 1 a.m., I heard something. It was faint enough that for a moment I thought I had imagined it. But Biscuit heard it too. He lifted his head from where he was sleeping at the foot of the bed, ears forward, body rigid. It was a sound from below us, not dramatic, not a crash, not a bang, just a slow, deliberate creak. The kind of floorboard makes when someone who is trying very hard to be quiet shifts their weight from one foot to the other, from directly below our bedroom, which was directly above the kitchen, which was directly above the basement. Derek was already awake. I didn't need to say anything. We lay there in the dark listening, and we both heard it, and we looked at each other, and the conversation we had with our eyes in that moment lasted about 3 seconds and covered everything. We packed in 15 minutes, we put Biscuit in the car, we drove off that mountain in the dark without looking back. I texted Gary when we reached the highway, "We're leaving. Something is in your basement. I'd suggest calling the police before you send anyone to check." He never responded. I filed a report with the local sheriff's department when we got home. Gave them the address, described what we found, described the sound. 2 weeks later, I called to follow up. The deputy I spoke to told me that officers had visited the property. They found the hidden room, they found the sleeping bag and the containers and the folding chair. I asked what was in the containers. There was a pause. "Canned food mostly," the deputy said. "Some clothing, personal items, I repeated. Like someone had been living there. Another pause, like someone had been spending time there, he said carefully. He told me there was no evidence of any crime and the case had been closed. I asked if Gary had been questioned. He said Gary had been cooperative and had expressed surprise at the discovery. I thanked him and hung up. I have not rented a vacation property since. I do not think I ever will again. And whenever we stay somewhere new, a hotel, a friend's guest room, anywhere, Derek checks every door, every closet, every wall that doesn't look quite right. It only takes one time. I need you to understand something before I start. My sister Maya is one of the most level-headed people I have ever known. She is a third-grade teacher. She coaches youth soccer on weekends. She has a laugh that you can hear from 2 rooms away and an almost supernatural ability to remain calm in situations that would send most people into a spiral. She is not someone who imagines things. She is not someone who panics. Which is why when she told me she thought someone was watching her apartment, I listened. This started in the spring of 2021. Maya was living alone in a ground-floor apartment in a quiet residential neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio. She had lived there for 2 years without incident. Good neighborhood. Good neighbors. The kind of street where people wave to each other from driveways and look out for each other's packages. The first time she noticed him, she almost didn't register it at all. She was coming home from school on a Tuesday afternoon, and she noticed a man standing on the sidewalk across the street. Nothing remarkable about him, average height, dark jacket. He appeared to be looking at his phone. She went inside. She made dinner. She forgot about him. 3 days later, she was walking Pepper, her small gray terrier, through the neighborhood in the early evening. She turned the corner onto her street, and there he was again. Same spot, same dark jacket. This time he wasn't looking at his phone. He was looking at her building. She walked past him with her head down, went inside, locked the door. She told herself it was coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he was waiting for someone. The world is full of people standing on sidewalks. Over the next 2 weeks, she saw him 6 more times, always in the evening. Always on the same stretch of sidewalk across from her building, always facing her apartment. She started keeping a note in her phone. Date, time, what he was wearing, how long he stayed. She showed me the note when she called me the 3rd week. I stared at it for a long time. There was a pattern. He came on Tuesdays and Thursdays without exception. He arrived between 6:15 and 6:45 p.m. He stayed between 40 minutes and 2 hours. And every single time he positioned himself with a direct sightline to Maya's bedroom window. Have you called the police? I asked. And told them what? She said, that a man is standing on a public sidewalk? She was right. Standing on a sidewalk is not a crime. Looking at an apartment building is not a crime. Without a direct threat or an act of trespassing, there was nothing the police could do, and we both knew it. Have you seen his face? I asked. Not clearly, she said. He keeps his head down when I come outside. By the time I get my phone out, he's usually moving. I drove to Columbus that weekend. I told Maya I was coming to visit, which was true, but I also wanted to see this man for myself. Saturday evening, I sat in Maya's car, parked down the block with a clear view of the sidewalk across from her building. Maya was inside, just me, in the dark, with a coffee from the gas station and my phone ready to take photos. He didn't come Saturday. Sunday evening, I was back in the car. 6:20 p.m. He came. He walked up the sidewalk from the south end of the block, hands in his jacket pockets, head slightly down, stopped in his usual spot. Looked up at Maya's building. I took 8 photos before my hands started shaking. The photos weren't good. Evening light shot through a car window at distance, with me trying not to be obvious. But they were clear enough to show his face. He was older than I had expected. Mid-50s maybe. Clean-shaven. Ordinary features. He looked like someone's uncle. He looked like someone you'd see in a grocery store and never think about again. He stood there for 50 minutes. Then he turned and walked back the way he came, south down the block until I lost him in the dark. I went inside and showed Maya the photos. She went pale when she saw them. I know him, she said. I stared at her. Not personally, she said quickly. I recognize him. He came into the school, she explained. About 6 weeks before she first noticed him on the sidewalk, there had been a man who came to the school's front office saying he was looking to enroll his child. He had sat in the waiting area for about 20 minutes before the office manager asked for his information. He didn't have a child. He had the wrong school district address. He had given a name that didn't match any ID he could produce. After a brief confused conversation, he had left. The office manager had logged the incident as a minor irregularity, nothing serious enough to escalate. Maya had seen him briefly through the office window, just a glimpse, but looking at my photos, she was certain it was the same man. We called the police that night. This time the responding officer took it more seriously. We had photos, we had the school incident report. We had Maya's 2 weeks of documented observations. He told us to make sure all windows and doors were secured. He told Maya to vary her routine, different routes, different times. He told us he would have a car drive past the building a few times each evening for the next week. He took the photos and said he would try to identify the man. We asked how long that would take. He said he couldn't give us a timeline. 2 nights after we spoke to the police, I got a call from Maya at 11:47 p.m. She didn't say anything when I answered. Just breathing. Fast and shallow. Maya, I said. Maya, what is happening? He's in the parking lot, she whispered. Not the sidewalk. The parking lot. He's right outside my window. Everything in me went cold. Lock your bedroom door, I said, right now, and call 911 while I stay on the line with you. I don't want to make a sound, she whispered. I don't want him to hear me. Maya, I kept my voice as steady as I could. Listen to me. Call 911. Tell them there is a man outside your window and you are frightened. You do not need to yell. You do not need to make noise. Just call. She did. I stayed on the line with her. Police arrived in 4 minutes. I know because I counted every second of those 4 minutes, and they are the longest 4 minutes of my life. 3 stories. 3 ordinary people. 3 moments when the world they thought they understood turned out to be something else entirely. A coworker who knew things no one should know. A room behind a wall that was never supposed to be found. A man in the dark who had been there far longer than anyone realized. If there's one thing I want you to take away from tonight, it's this. Pay attention to the things that feel slightly off. The food in the refrigerator that wasn't yours. The coworker who stands outside closed doors. The stranger on the sidewalk who is there just a little too often. Your instincts exist for a reason. Trust them. Lock your doors, and if something feels wrong, it probably is. Subscribe, because next week's story is worse.